Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and hope you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I'm Bushcrawl Blitz. Today on channel, we have tank number 6 in my 10 favourite tanks list of all time, and it is the T95. And if any tank is going to make a case for proving that this list is made based on a whole lot of factors outside of win rate and reliability, then it's this tank here. This is a tank that has really succumbed to power creep. It's not nearly the tank that it once was when I first got a hold of it, but it's a tank that I drove for nearly 1,000 games back in the day. This and the T110E3 were literally the only things I would drive for weeks and weeks at a time. I adored them. And the 95 was one of the tanks that I most wanted to get a hold of in the entire game, because once I saw the Doom Turtle when I was driving up the American heavy line, I was just absolutely stunned at the way it looked. Because if you've never seen this thing before, it is a phenomenal looking vehicle with the double tracks on either side, the incredibly wide frame, the monstrously large amount of armor on the front of the tank, and just the general low to the ground gunslinger look that it has, despite the fact it only goes 15 kilometers an hour. And driving this and driving this and driving this was a treat, because back in the day, the game was very different, both in terms of the meta. It was far more, route dominated. Like, heavies would go the heavy route. If you were on Fort Despair, you would have a massive rumble down the heavy side, and people would be there in front of you. And you would drive the T95 forward, tapping that button very aggressively and filling them full of nasty big holes with 640 Alpha. There weren't as many super fast tanks either. You didn't have tanks like a lot of light tanks running around. There just weren't as many tanks like that in the game. And a lot of the tanks that were in the game were quite slow. Like, your E75 had 3 different engines, and you had to grind through a lot of them. And the 95 really didn't face the challenges that it faces today. The maps are a lot friendlier for a T95 as well. So it's no longer the effective workhorse that it used to be for me. But I'll tell you what it is. It's still a meme that is just hilarious to play. It is just a hilarious tank. The problem is, there are now so many guns out there, so many big, nasty guns at the tier that can easily pen it, and that they've nerfed it so much. Like, they've nerfed, look at this shot, like side of T34, right above the tracks. That happened, no worries. And then watch the shots it misses. Like, the gun is still very, very troll. It's 0.35 dispersion. The aim time is still fairly solid and fairly large. Sometimes it doesn't even hit the target. You don't even get the bounce when fully aimed in. It's just one of those guns. 0.35 dispersion is right about where you don't want to be in terms of gun characteristics. But they really nerfed this tank hard. They reduced the armor. They made it easy to pen from the front. They reduced the armor on the sides. They made it easy to pen on the sides. And that's had a really negative effect on the overall value of the tank within the game. But it hasn't changed the way I feel about my big, bold, beautiful, bouncy, bloody slow tank, the T95. Before I had a lot of mates in game and people to platoon with, this was me. I didn't really even... I think by the time I had about 10,000 battles, I had a 5% or 15% platoon rate. Not even that. I just didn't know that you'd really talk to anyone. No one really talked much in game at all. It was pretty quiet, and now it's just a land filled with salty grubs calling you dog and pig and noob, and driving the T95 is an experience in self-flagellation. If you drive this little monster now, people just start screaming at you like you've done something wrong, because everyone's dead when you get to the battlefield. Like, I had some idiot in a T30 on Alpenstat today call me out for camping, and all I did was went the flank with everyone else, and then they left, and I was left on the flank. There was no one there. I go 15 kilometers an hour. What do you want me to do? Relocate and change my angle of attack? Like, you don't have a lot of choices when you're running this big dog. You basically go the direction you pointed, and you hope that everyone goes with you. And if they decide to flash to the flank, then you just suck eggs and deal with it. That's kind of how it is. You can still do big HE things, though, to big HE butts like that. And yet, so often with this tank, you just spend your time hard up against a rock, praying and hoping as you slowly traverse towards desperation and the gun hits the rock instead of the tank, that no one's going to go behind you, because you are quite literally the slowest and most, vulnerable target on your entire team. And this is one of the reasons why I never understood why they nerfed this tank at all. It was a tank that, sure, it had great frontal armor and it had, a nice gun, but man, there is no greater detriment to mobility than a T95. It is like death by 1,000 cuts when you get a medium tank anywhere near your flank. You quite literally can't move, and they get to see you rumbling towards them. It's hard to hide the fact that you're coming when you do 15 kilometers an hour and you're as big as a house. Now, that's not actually true because the camouflage rating on this tank is surprisingly awesome. But you run out of choices. It's one of those tanks that doesn't give you a lot of choices. So why did I put it here? Why did it feature so highly? Well, because it intrigued me, and it kept me rolling and loving Blitz in a whole new and different fashion. It made me want to drive down the heavy route and engage, and that was just a bizarre feeling at the time, to have a tank that you felt, if I drive forward and I can keep him in front of me, I'm going to win this game. And because of that, I played a lot more Blitz. And it was also a fantastic tank to teach me about positioning in the game. I mean, you can see how hard it is for this tank to deal. I don't know. I mean, really? Like, this gun is so troll. I'll show you one more game, and then we'll call it a night in the old T95. And I don't play it much anymore, for good reason. It's a tank that's been passed by science, but it's not a tank that can't perform. It's just that the maps are so different now, and there's no, which is a good thing. Like, I think it's a good thing. There's far more versatility within the maps, and the ability of tanks of all different kinds and natures to succeed is something that's important. And I think maps like Normandy hopefully herald the way for where map design is going. But I liked this game because this was just an old school T95 game where I drove to the middle of the map and there were shots available, so I took them. I literally if you want to know how to drive this tank, just drive to the middle of the map, man. Like, you just start driving forward to the middle of the map and do your best. And it's a great tank to teach you about positional play. You can see how often I have to start moving when I want to do something. Like, I have to really think about where everyone is, because if I'm slowly cresting across the top of this ridgeline, I will slowly get the crap blown out of me. So I'm always wondering, where's that Borsig? What's he doing? I can't see a Borsig. I wonder if the Borsig is up there hiding at the top of the mountain. He could be there. He could be somewhere near there. Why don't we check it out and see if he is in fact there? And I can tell you right now that we did hit the Borsig right there. We did 844 damage to him, and he left there and went down to the left flank. You'll see when he finally gets spotted, he is 844 hit points less healthy. And this is where the tank excels. It's a great bookend for a team. If you are safe enough on one side of the map and you get used to driving it next to large building structures and zone lines, then you can let the rest of the team just do whatever they're going to do. You do you, let the rest of the team do whatever they're going to do. I had so many games in this tank back in the day where the guns from the other team would just be thundering away and crap would be bouncing absolutely everywhere, and I would just be in hog heaven. It really was an eye-opener for me to drive a tank this slow. And I think that's the key, really. That's probably one of the reasons I loved it so much. Anyone can drive an Object 140 at pace and flank and farm. It takes real forethought and skill and map knowledge to not bite your eyeballs out when you're driving around at 15 kilometers an hour. Because if you don't really pay attention and watch the map, then you'll get left on your own, and someone in a T-44 or something crappy like that will come along and park behind you and take all of your hit points without giving any hit points in return. There you can go. There you can see there's our friendly our friendly Borsig. I don't know if anyone else hit him, but we definitely hit him very, very hard. That's it, guys. That's the T95. This was actually a mastery game of all things. And it was only about 4,000 damage. But I think the fact that it's a supremacy match that I capped and took the cap back off the red team just tipped me over the edge. Might also have to do with the fact that they knew I was doing a video Wargaming did, so they threw me a cheeky pity mastery. Because, man, I wanted to make sure I had a decent game in the T95 apart from that loss that I had where we did only 5k. And it took me hours and hours and hours of playing. And I was just constantly getting left on my own and doing 3k damage or not even seeing the red team at all and doing 1,200 damage. That's it. That's the T95. Number 6. What's number 5? Let's find out. Stick around, boys and girls, and you're going to see my 5th favorite tank of all time pop on channel very, very shortly. It is... I don't know if it'll be a huge surprise. I think it probably will, actually. I think it might surprise a few people. It's certainly a tank I drove a lot, and it's a tank that I was very, very high on before most of my buddies were very, very high on. So let's see whether you can figure out which one it is. I'm Bushka on Blitz. You're wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to become a patron, patreon.com/Bushka on Blitz. And until next time, look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.